Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the August 6, 2018 regular meeting of the Milford Board of Aldermen. Please join me as we salute our flag and remain standing for a moment of silence for Mr. John Cotton. A good friend of mine's father passed away. Just want to have a moment of silence if you don't mind. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Alderman Anderson?
Alderman Anderson would like to be excused, Madam Secretary.
Alderman Beatty? Alderman Fortunati? Alderman Gaynor? Alderman Gurman? Alderman Genotasio? Alderman Golden?
Here.
Alderman Grant?
Here.
Alderman Hardiman? Alderman Smith?
Here.
Alderman Sutton?
Here.
Alderman Tranquilli? Here. Alderman Beccarelli? Here. Alderman Vitro?
Here.
Alderman Vitale? 14 present, Mr. Chairman.
14 present. We do have a quorum. Thank you, Madam Secretary. The next portion of the meeting is devoted to public comment. Statements are limited to the legislative function of the Board of Aldermen. The time limit granted to each speaker shall be 3 minutes. Residents, taxpayers, and electors may address the board at this time. The board encourages speakers not to express derogatory, insensitive, or offensive statements, or to engage in personal attacks against individuals. In order to allow everyone an opportunity to speak, I'd ask that everyone please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to address the board can do so at this time.
Good evening. My name's Ed Van Show. I live on New Haven Avenue, 858 New Haven Avenue. I came about your hearing just today, actually, and it was kind of surprising, to be perfectly honest, because last week I just returned from vacation. I saw the wonderful video that we have for Milford with our sprawling beaches, our downtown, a wonderful video to help promote tourism and people coming to our towns to, showcase our beaches. And then I see this proposal, I see this proposal to make an amendment to an existing ordinance that I thought was kind of silly. I guess it was done back in 2016. So we're a shore town, we're trying to promote tourism, but we will ticket somebody who has a trailer with a jet ski or a boat if they park it overnight on their street. Now, I don't know about anybody else on this board, but yeah, I see that as a bit silly, a little counterintuitive, because if I'm someone who wants to visit Milford, because we have a beautiful town, we have a lot that we could talk about, but if I come here and decide to rent one of the cottages or the myriad of buildings in Milford that are rented out to renters every year, they want to come to a shore town, they bring their jet ski or they bring their boat, and they have a house on East Broadway where they can't park it in a driveway, so they park it on the street. They wake up the next morning, I got a ticket. So what do you think that's going to happen next year? They're not going to come here. They're going to say, hey, they're going to tell their friend, and they're going to tell their friend, and ultimately, it's going to affect everything that we're working to do to promote our town. So in a nutshell, what I would ask is that you reevaluate the existing ordinance rather than just adding something arbitrarily, because I've lived in this town for over 20 years. The only diesel I've ever smelled in my backyard was the state trucks that left their paving machines in my street for a week, or the myriad of different construction companies that leave the cones on the side of the road. I've never seen it along the shoreline. If they have been there, it's far and few between. So I'm not sure who they're complaining about, whether they had a bad day, they couldn't see the seagulls on the beach, I don't know. But speaking as a resident I love this town, I think this ordinance is completely counterintuitive, and I would present that to the board this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Dominic Cotton, 60 Corona Drive, and I'm speaking out actually in favor of this ordinance. And I speak out because, among other things, I've been an offender of this ordinance. And so that might be a little bit strange for everybody else. But I've actually parked my boat out in front of my yard. And I've had my neighbors come and complain, and it obviously wasn't like something that I intentionally meant to do. Unfortunately, I brought my boat home and didn't have an opportunity to put it into my backyard, because that was what this ordinance allows, is that you can park it off-street in your own property. But I understood where they were coming from. So they were concerned that most of our residents' streets don't really afford an opportunity to be able to pass by clearly. So if you leave a commercial vehicle or you leave a boat, and we're not talking about like a skidoo, I have a big boat, and I fully admit that I did this. But you know what? I've had the opportunity to walk around all of our streets. And I know that there are sewers that connect up directly to Long Island Sound and directly affect our environment. So if diesel gas is let out into the environment, it goes directly into Long Island Sound. And I know this personally because I've tracked where the sewers actually go. And this came actually as a result of my good friend Brian Anderson and some of the complaints that he had within the 5th District. And I know within the 5th District, a multitude of the sewers go directly out into Long Island Sound. So it's not just from the purview of having this, block the city streets, which are residential. But we're talking about commercial vehicles. So, I know my boat kind of blocked the view and everything else that were going around, and it caused, when people parked on the other side of the street, it caused distress to people to the point that they actually called the police. And I made sure that I moved the vehicle within the time frame that they gave me, because they were very nice about not giving me a ticket or anything else. They explained to me the ordinance, and obviously I was very happy to move my car. But, here's the point. Look, you know what? When you got commercial vehicles, you're running a business out of your residence. If you can't park your vehicles on your residence, then you need to get a bigger lot, and you need to become more of a commercial entity. You don't need to make sure that these things like chippers or double axle diesels have the opportunity to affect the environment. You need to get like a bigger, piece of property that you can park these on your own property. Same thing for campers. You know what? If you can't keep a camper within your own home, then you need to find someplace else to put it. I have a boat. You know what? I looked at it. I made sure that it fit within my yard. I made sure that the trees kind of go up so that you can't really see it when I parked it in the winter. And that's what I did. And I put a special gate, and I put everything else around it. It's not an unreasonable accommodation to do that for your neighbors, and they appreciate it. But, residential streets are small. they're not meant to withhold, you know, large vehicles or other things. I have never seen a city street, you know, city-like vehicle like parked on my streets. I know they have parking lots, and I know they have special designated areas to make sure that that's where they are, unless they're doing specific work in that area. So, you know, this makes sense to me. And that's clearly what I'm here to express. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Steve Cooper. I'm here to talk about the Milford Performance Center, which I have done before. Wanted to give everybody an update. Told you I would do that periodically. Actually, after the last meeting that I attended, it was recommended that I stay around afterwards and get to talk to some of you individually, and I thought that was very helpful. So I just want to bring everybody sort of a little bit up to date and actually ask for your assistance in certain ways. You have notes on this in front of you, so I'm going to just sort of touch on it. Right now, this year, we're looking to do 20 shows, maybe even a few more than that. We're on target for that, which means economically, according to the national statistics, we should be bringing in close to $250,000 of economy into the community, to the restaurants and small shops and such within the town. But we're doing it all year round, unlike we have some great events here. The Oyster Festival, we just finished the Milford Lobster Bake, but those are once a year. This is all year round that we're doing this, as well as the aspect of having them be fundraising events also. One of the things I'm still hearing from a lot of people is they didn't even know I existed, and that there's no signage up. So I put a picture there with a mock-up that I did. It was advised to me by several people on the board, as well as Chris Saley and a couple other people that I had talked to do one of those vinyl banners, the really nice ones, that maybe a week or two before each show, I can put it up between the pillars with bungee cords, so it doesn't, you know, it's not going to hurt anything to put it up and take it down. That way people know about it. It's not a permanent sign. We can always address that down the road. But that would be really important, because people just don't know that we do shows until sometimes the last minute. And then people coming from out of town are driving by and they're calling me on my cell phone, because the number happens to forward to my cell phone, you know, asking where we're located, even though there's an address there, because sometimes they'll try to go to the front of the Parsons building, which is closed, as opposed to the auditorium side. One of the other things that's really important is, because we're doing so many shows, you're only allowed a certain amount of temporary liquor permits. And so I've got all my signatures from all of the, you know, everybody that I need them for. But the only missing piece is I need to be able to put up a sign for 45 days. You've all seen them at restaurants and different venues and what have you. And so I'm not sure who's responsible for saying, yes, you could do that or whatever. So I figured I'd bring that up in here. Let's see. We'll skip around a little bit. One of the last things that's really important, I think, is the fact that we have been talking about storage space since day one. And in the back of the auditorium is a room that has an empty room that just has some chairs in it, and it's used a couple of times a year. And again, when I had the meeting with Chris Saley, and I don't remember if the mayor was at that particular meeting, he said, what about that room? And I said, that's the room that I actually wanted to start with, because I can keep all of the drums and the pianos and all the equipment in. I've actually had to turn down a free baby grand piano that we could have had because I had nowhere to store it. Plus, I've got a lot of the senior citizens that call me, because we've got a lot of shows, as you can see on the other flyer, like Sha Na Na and the Cast of Beatlemania.
Mr. Cooper,
yes.
You need to sum it up.
I'll sum it up. So anyway, I can use that same space for multiple purposes, being ticketing for the seniors and stuff at the same time. So most of what I want to talk about is on here anyway. So if anybody has any questions, I am very reachable. So thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time can do so. Seeing none, we'll open up under agenda item number 3, Alderman Vecchiarelli, consideration of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen held on July 2nd, 2018.
The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 4, we do not have a special organizational meeting to consider. Agenda item number 5, Chairman's report. Just remind everyone, of course, we all know that we have the Oyster Festival coming up August 18th, and I know everyone here enjoys that festival very much. And I just want to bring your attention to one other thing, too, that I keep forgetting to bring up at these meetings. I attended a FOI learning class, and oftentimes you'll notice that we have tabled, the word is tabled quite often. The only time you can table something at a meeting is in the event you're going to be bringing it up sometime later on in the meeting. The proper word to use, which we've been using most of the time, is postponed. So that was laid out pretty clearly at the class that we took. So in other words, if Alderman Sutton, for instance, is late and he had something to bring up in the meeting, you can table the particular agenda item until Alderman Sutton arrives, as long as it's that particular meeting. But if it's not, then you need to have a motion to postpone that particular item until another date. All right, so I just wanted to clarify that up. Thank you. Item number 6, Mayor's report. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Happy summer. We are in the dog days of summer. I was talking to Alderman Vitale before the meeting about how the digital billboard at Milford Bank read 100 degrees today. It is a hot one. That's when other businesses, everything slows down a little bit because of the heat and because of summer vacations. The city of Milford, just the opposite. Being a shoreline town, this is when people descend on our beaches and our waterfront, and we are even busier than the rest of the year. So to all of our departments, to all of the people that work in the city of Milford, a big thank you, because they've been doing such a terrific job the last couple of months when Milford is just bustling with activity. But other than that, I'd respectfully request your consideration and action. Those items listed on the agenda, items 8A through 8E, there is one addendum item, 8E, which I would ask that you take up and consider. And other than that, I do have a few announcements. Michelle Kramer is in the audience, and Milford Preservation Trust and the Milford Open Space committees, as well as many other stakeholders, worked very, very hard in order to officially designate the Milford Green, our historic green, as part of the State Register of Historic Places. That just happened earlier in July. It's a big feather in the cap for anybody who holds our green near and dear. So again, a big thank you to Letty Malone of our Open Space Committee, Michelle Kramer of the Milford Preservation Trust, and many others who worked hard on a very big initiative to make something, to properly designate it. But other than that, we do have a treat today. We have an update from our summer fellow, Claire Kramer, on the initiative that we have for Sustainable CT. Applications are due to the state later this month, August 24th. And to give this board an update, to give the rest of the city an update, Claire is here. She's been working on Milford's application, which we plan to submit within the next few weeks. So at this point, I'm going to help her with some of the audio-visual stuff and turn it over to Claire for a quick presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Blake, Chairman Vitro, and all the aldermen for having me here this evening. My name is Claire Kramer, Sustainable Milford's intern for the summer. Last year, the Board of Aldermen and the city demonstrated their dedication to Sustainable CT, a voluntary certification program. Today, I will walk you through everything Milford is gaining credit for. There's a lot to share, but this is just the quick highlights. So there are various definitions of sustainability, and this term is always evolving. Milford aligns with many of Sustainable CT's standards, as the city has strived to be thriving, resilient, collaborative, and forward-thinking. The program honors cities that build community, local economy, promote the health and well-being of current and future residents, and respect the finite capacity of the natural environment. In total, there are 9 action components of the application, and 1 action must be completed in each of them in order to gain full certification. This application is very holistic and touches on various parts of what it means to live in one of Connecticut's towns. This ranges all the way from cost savings to environmental impacts. The first action, Thriving Local Economies, relates most strongly to our Office of Community Development. There are always opportunities for business development workshops and roundtables around Milford. Secondly, under well-stewarded and land and natural resources, the city supports programs like the Girl Scouts Troop Project, highlighting the dangers of feeding the waterfowl, and supplies brochures around the Milford duck ponds to help keep our ecosystems healthy. The third action, Vibrant and Creative Cultural Ecosystems, speaks to the unique flair of the Milford Arts Council and programs offered throughout the library. Recently, Mr. Steve was hosted by the library and City Hall and encouraged youth participation in the arts for some fun and dance. Number 4, next on the list, Dynamic and Resilient Planning truly goes hand in hand with Milford's historical resources and the fabric of our city. As mentioned just now, the Milford Green was nominated to the Connecticut State Register of Historic Places. Milford also encourages various forms of transportation. Number 5, Clean and Diverse Transportation Systems and Choices shows or is most clearly illustrated by Shipyard Lane's Contraflow Bike Lane. Part of the East Coast Greenway, Contraflow bike lanes are designed to allow bicyclists to ride in the opposite direction of motor vehicle traffic and encourage safe, diverse modes of transportation. Additionally, Milford has just installed many bike lockers around the city and near the train station. Moving on to number 6, Efficient Physical Infrastructure and Operations, the Energy Advisory Board was actually the first department responsible for gaining us 5 points in the spring towards the application. Milford consistently receives high marks for energy performance in buildings across the city, and 18 buildings have received Energy Star Awards. Section 7, strategic and inclusive public services, include sub-actions such as holding a sustainable event in the city. A great example would be our farmers markets, which encourage residents to buy local, walk to go shopping rather than drive, and engage with farm-to-table practices. Section 8 gives municipalities the option to present housing profile data at a public meeting, which also fulfills Section 9. Here are some quick facts about our city. Milford's population sits at 53,206, with 23,092 total housing units. Milford is a working-class community where 32.72% of households are low and moderate income, according to HUD and Census Bureau data. 52% of the town's renters and 35% of its homeowners spend 30% or more of their income on housing. Milford is one of 118 Connecticut municipalities with single-family homes dominating its housing stock at 77%. The City of Milford receives an annual Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Award from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development upon approval of the U.S. Congress. Milford has various affordable options throughout the city, including properties on High Street, Golden Hill, Meadowside, Seaside, White Oaks Terrace, Riders Park, Woodmont Road, and New Haven Ave, just to name a few. The final section of the application, Implement Your Own Sustainability Action, connects with various initiatives within the city. For example, the Milford-Weppawag River initiatives, including water quality testing and pond dredging, fall outside of the requirements of sustainable CT and will gain us additional points because they demonstrate a commitment to our watershed and natural resources. Going forward, I hope that Milford will continue to weave sustainability into the culture of our city. Sustainability is already here. It ranges from public works supporting the rainwater garden over at Parsons. It's within the walls of the Milford Arts Council. It's at the train station. It's everywhere around us, and I really think it's an essential part of our community. Thank you. Any questions? Sorry.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Can we get that presentation? Can you send that to our board?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and again, I am very excited because at the end of this month, I think Milford will be one of just a handful, even if that, of communities that are going to be submitting applications that are successful to this program, and it's because we have had a good champion over the course of the last several months collect the points and really act as the concierge to bring all these different things that we have done over the past several years together in our application. So how about another round of applause for Claire Kramer.
Thank you. Thank you, and I also want to make another comment. Although he's not here, Steve Johnson has been an amazing support system and all of the departments throughout Milford, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire, for that great presentation.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 7. We do not have any unfinished business. Moving on to new business. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8A.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the attached resolution regarding the State of Connecticut Department of Energy Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's 8B.
I'm sorry. You're right, Mr. Mayor. Let me read 8A. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the attached resolution regarding 2018 South Central Regional Multi-Jurisdiction Hazard Mitigation Plan Update.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor.
just as brief background, this is a 5-year plan that we need to adopt in order to qualify for FEMA grants, hazard mitigation grants. We last approved it right on the heels of Storm Sandy. This year, we've done it as a regional document, part of our Council of Governments. 14 out of the 15 towns in our Council of Governments are part of this plan. And tonight we do have Bill Richards, our Deputy Emergency Management Director here, and we have Carl Lamenta from our COG. He is the Director of the South Central Regional Council of Governments to answer any questions. We do have the portions of the plan that are Milford-based in your packet, but if you have any questions, we do have those experts here to answer for any questions that you still have.
Anyone have any questions? They need to be answered? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, this time 8B.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the attached resolution regarding the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8C.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the attached memorandum of agreement between the Workforce Alliance and the City of Milford for 2018 State Summer Youth Employment Program, and to authorize the Mayor and Director of Health to take all steps necessary to effectuate said agreement.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8D.
And Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request pursuant to CGS 8-24I to authorize one or more providers to be selected by the Milford Board of Education, and said providers, affiliates, designers, and/or assignees to site, own, operate, and maintain a solar array at John F. Kennedy Elementary School, Live Oaks Elementary School, Meadowside Elementary School, Orange Ave Elementary School, and West Shore Middle School. 2, to authorize the Milford Board of Education to take all steps necessary to effectuate the installation and operation of such solar arrays, including, without limitation, granting access licenses for each of the schools and signing all documents. And 3, to authorize the mayor or his designee to take all steps necessary on behalf of the city to assist the Board of Education to effectuate the installation and operation of such solar arrays, including signing all documents.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8E.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the attached resolution regarding purchase of service contract, POS, between the City of Milford and the State of Connecticut Office of Early Childhood.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 10. I'm sorry, agenda item number 9, new business not on the agenda, which may be introduced to 2/3 of the vote, is not, we don't have any. So we'll go on to agenda item number 10, budget memo transfers. Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the budget memo transfers, number 13 and number 14, Funds 10, FY 18, and number 1 and number 2, Fund 10, FY 19.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item number 11, refunds.
Happy to report there is none.
Reports, agenda item number 12, reports of standing committees. Alderman Frank Smith, agenda item number 12A.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Ordinance Committee met earlier this evening to consider 2 proposed ordinance amendments. The first of these, an ordinance adopting Chapter 2 Administration, Article 5, Revenue and Finance, Division 2, Purchasing Department Bidding Procedure, Section 2-93 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Milford, authorization of contracts. The Ordinance Committee met this evening and unanimously recommended this ordinance with a positive vote for consideration by the full board, and I'd like to submit it, Mr. Chairman, as a motion.
Thank you, Alderman Smith. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Frank Smith.
Mr. Chairman, the Ordinance Committee met this evening, earlier this evening, to consider an ordinance amending Chapter 14, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Stopping and Standing and Parking, Division 1, generally Section 14-15 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Milford. Parking of trailers, semi-truck trailers, boats, campers, camp trailers, motorhomes, commercial vehicles, recreational vehicles, and non-motorized vehicles with penalties for violation. This amendment to the existing ordinance was considered and was unanimously recommended to the full board this evening, and I'd like to present it, Mr. Chairman, as a motion.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Alderman Smith. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. So we did hear from a lot of our constituents about the importance of making this amendment because we do have a lot of streets that are narrow where commercial vehicles are blocking and causing safety hazards, environmental hazards. The reason why I'm speaking on this tonight is actually because of the gross weight limit that we currently have set at 15,000 pounds. When we originally created this ordinance, it was actually set at 10,000 pounds, but the police asked us to increase it to 15 to not impact someone's private pickup truck or private vehicle. I went online and actually found some gross weight weightings for a bunch of different pickup trucks and found that everything except for basically something as large as like an F-350 would take in be below 10,000. Some of those may be higher. What I did find that was concerning though is that we have some box trucks, some that are up to 27 feet in length, that are under 15,000 gross weight rating. So that would actually be excluded in what we currently have written. So my proposal is to make an amendment to reduce the gross rate weighting back to 10,000 and then add an item that actually the town of Danbury has in their ordinance. What it actually says is it excluded our station wagons, compact type bus vehicles, and pickup trucks used for private transportation. So what this would do is anyone who has a private truck wouldn't be affected by the ordinance, even if it was over the 10,000 gross weight limit. So I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
We have an amendment and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Beatty.
This is off the mark from the discussion about weight, but some of the objection that I have found from constituents in the first district is the type of vehicle, the signage on the vehicle, and this gets to a quality of life issue. And is there any correlation between the length of the vehicle or the weight, and that would be used for a business and then be allowed to be parked on the street? With, because it's not just, you're bringing up length and weight, which are two important drivers of how one considers this. But those two determine what the function and use of the vehicle is for, and whether it's for business or not, and whether somebody has a nuts potato chip truck because you've amended the ordinance that allows that to squiggle by, even though that wasn't the intent of the amendment. So I ask you about that.
So I understand that concern. How it's written for Danbury is actually for vehicles that are used for private transportation. So my understanding is that would be fall under commercial. And also, it would be an officer that's going to be taking and providing this ticket, so he would have, the say in taking in what that would be. He would use his discretion.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, to the full board, I understand the spirit and intent of this ordinance amendment is to address some of the concerns twofold. One is the use of public streets and/or public and municipal parking lots for the purpose of conducting ongoing business at those locations. In other words, as somebody brought up here, I think as Mr. Cotton brought up earlier this evening, where they don't choose to have their own private space, they would park their commercial vehicles on the street for long periods of time, or actually use public streets or city parking lots for conducting their business. The second being some of the hazards, sight lines, congestion, blocking right-of-ways that is occasioned by the use of city streets for larger vehicles. The idea of the original ordinance, as I understand it, was for a gross weight limit of 10,000 pounds, and it was at the recommendation of the traffic division of the police department that we increase that gross weight so as not to include many different types of private conveyances or pickup trucks, that sort of thing. Somebody else said the problem here is that it becomes unenforceable. I think Alderman Vitale mentioned, and somebody else mentioned at the public hearing at the Ordinance Committee, that's one of the problems is these things are not enforced properly. And to include a lot of different designations on top of the police's mandate to properly ticket and remove these vehicles, the less detail in this, the better. But I do understand that the 15,000 pounds would permit a lot of, or anything under that would permit a lot of other vehicles that are presenting clear and present safety hazards and some of the other objections that I mentioned earlier. So I agree with Alderman Grant's amendment. I wish there was a better way that we could designate this without getting into long laundry lists and making this very cumbersome and difficult to enforce. But I agree that the simple gross weight limit is probably insufficient, so I would be in favor of Alderman Grant's amendment.
Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems as there may be vehicles that would be pickup trucks that would, if you went to one of the automotive places, the many of which we have in Milford, and bought a pickup truck, there are quite a few that are over that 10,000 gross vehicle weight. So you could, basically leave the showroom with a brand new pickup truck that you're just going to use for personal business, and you wouldn't be able to park it out in front of your house. That 15,000 is, I haven't seen anything that's over the 15,000 for the pickup trucks. So if we left the 15,000 there, we would pretty much safeguard the pickup trucks. But in regards to the box trucks, similar to, let's say you're going to move some of you're moving and you go to U-Haul and you get one of those box trucks, we clearly identify in this ordinance that if you need a CDL license to drive that truck, then it's considered a commercial vehicle. But if I'm not mistaken, let's say I'm just using U-Haul as an example. I believe they have different size trucks. So the ones that we kind of see all over the place for the people they use to move, the smaller ones, they have a couple of smaller ones. You don't need a commercial driver's license for those trucks, but they're larger trucks, which they're not tractor trailers, but they're just longer and bigger trucks. I do believe that you need a commercial driver's license for that. I see you shaking your head no. I'm not completely clear on this, but I know that they are substantially longer and bigger, and that I'm not aware of. I mean, if that were the situation, it would be pretty, it might be something we could all live with, but I'll yield the floor to, for more conversation.
According to that amendment, Alderman Grant, Alderman Tranquilli and myself have to get rid of our pickup trucks.
The amendment would include that trucks that are used for, for private use would not take and be affected by it. But I actually really do just want to address what Alderman Vaccarelli said. Trucks, for example, here's just some gross weight ratings of some common trucks. A 2019 Ram 1500 has a gross weight rating of about 7,000. 2019 Chevy Silverado is about 5,000. 2019 Ford F-150 is under 7,000. A 2019 Ford F-250 is about 10,000. And 2018 Ford F-350 ranges between 10,000 and at the absolute maximum was 14,000. Now, to compare that to trucks that actually require a CDL license, anything that's has a haul foot of over 26 feet. So, for example, without a CDL license, you could rent a U-Haul truck that has 34 feet in length and 8 feet 3 inches high. That's a large truck that you don't need a CDL license for. And also, where it currently sits at 15,000, a 20-foot U-Haul truck that is 26 feet 7 inches in length has a gross weight rating of 14,500, so that would be allowed on a city street. A 17-foot U-Haul truck, same thing, 15-foot, but a 20-foot U-Haul truck that's 26 feet in length would be under that 15,000, and that's not something that should be parked on a city street. That's a gigantic truck. The idea is to lower it and then add a specific verbiage to allow pickup trucks, so they're not included in the weight.
But this ordinance isn't really concerned about rented trucks. They're talking about trucks that individuals own and be parking it outside their houses on the city streets long period of time. U-Haul trucks, and Penske has another name brand as well. They're just used for temporary moving or hauling different things for a temporary time. And so that wouldn't go into this anyways.
I definitely understand that. We do, for example, have a very large Penske truck that is privately owned, parked near Walnut Beach, and the Penske trucks can be privately owned, and they are parked around Milford. So that is something that we're trying to address. There have been numerous complaints about these box trucks throughout the city. I know they come into the mayor's office multiple times a year, and a lot of my constituents have had them as well.
Any? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call vote, Madam Secretary, please.
Alderman Beatty? Alderman Fortunati? Alderman Gaynor? Yes. Alderman Gurman? Yes. Alderman Natasio?
Yes.
Alderman Golden? Yes. Alderman Grant?
Yes.
Alderman Hardiman? Yes. Alderman Smith? Yes. Alderman Sutton?
No.
Alderman Tranquilli?
No.
Alderman Vecchiarelli? No. Alderman Vitro?
No.
Alderman Vitale?
5 no, 9 yes. The amendment passes. On the original motion. Any more discussion on the original motion? Yes, Alderman Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to amend the original motion as amended. One of the issues that was raised, I believe, in the public hearing and amongst discussion of the aldermen and constituents is the parking of the vehicles that this ordinance addresses in city-owned parking lots. I know particularly down in Woodmont in the 4th District and near Anchor Beach, that is something that has been a problem. And I would like to propose an amendment to subsection A in the 5th line after the word highway to add, or in a city-owned parking lot without authorization by Milford's Director of Public Works, comma, that would be the end of the amendment, and then it would pick back up, or upon land areas devoted by the Traffic Commission of the city on through the end of subsection A.
The amendment has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Vitale.
Through you, Mr. Chair. To Alderman Sutton's point of city parking lots and getting permission or determined by the authorization of the City Public Works Director, I would also like to add the Milford Police Department, Chief of the Police Department, into that. I think there has to be some connection between the police department because obviously, as I said in the ordinance committee, you know, we have so many ordinances on the books and we're not really enforcing a lot of them. So maybe one of these days we'll clear that up. But the fact is, if we put another ordinance on the books and, you know, if there's a special ordinance or authorization by the Director of Public Works, then there should be a tie-in to the police department. I think the chief should be an authorized individual to give permission.
I'd like to have you clarify how that's going to work, Alderman Vitale. You say you need permission from the chief of police as well as the Director of Public Works. So, pardon me?
Either or.
Either, okay.
So in other words, how is it going to work to get permission from the Director from Public Works? Will be in the same vein, getting a permission and authorization from the police department than the chief, quote, chief, to park
so there. That particular van or truck, box truck that Alderman Sutton is referring to or referred to if he got permission from either the Department of Public Works or the Chief of Police, he could park it there?
According to what the amendment would be addressing.
Okay. Any more? Alderman Vecchiarelli?
Did we get a second?
Yes.
I didn't really.
Alderman Sutton, would you like to repeat that amendment, please?
Actually, if I may, I would like to withdraw my motion to amend and make that motion, or make the motion again, to adopt Alderman Vitale's suggestion.
Alderman Beatty, you removed your second, and Alderman Sutton removed his amendment. So now we're back on a new amendment. Is there a second that I didn't hear?
Well, I would like to make the motion again, just for the record.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, going back to Section A, I would propose that Section A be amended to add the language after, in the fifth line, the word highway, to or in a city-owned parking lot without authorization by Milford's Director of Public Works or Chief of Police. And then it would be comma and pick back up with or upon land throughout the rest.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Alderman Sutton. On the original motion, Alderman Smith.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. With your indulgence, I know I've spoken maybe twice already on this, but with regard to the original motion, with the noted amendments, gentleman spoke during the public hearing section, and he made a point that came up when this trailer ordinance was amended about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it's a good point, which is we are a shorefront community. We are in Long Island Sound. We have the second longest shoreline in the state, and it is a boating community. And I think there was a good point made that in order to encourage recreation and partake in the many amenities of a shorefront community, we don't want to actively discourage boaters from coming down and using our beachfront resources. On the other hand, we can see where this can become cumbersome and can become a congestion and safety hazard when you have people leaving boats for an extended period of time. The question I have, and I'm going to direct to the city attorney and the original language, when it talks about no semi-truck, trailer, boat, or camper, and the final sentence of that paragraph, section 14-15, section A, unless the trailer or vehicle is temporarily disabled for a period not to exceed 24 hours while so disabled. That doesn't address the fact that if you park a boat or you park a boat trailer and put your boat in the water, you can leave your trailer there for 24 hours without being ticketed. It isn't disabled, it's being used. Is there any way that the police would have the understanding that people using bringing their trailers down to, let's say, Silver Beach or somewhere, would have access to that for a 24-hour period without being cited?
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Smith. Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Smith. I think that it's very hard for me to answer your question because what you're essentially asking is an officer's discretion. I mean, we've had some discussion earlier tonight about the enforcement of ordinances. All this body can do is put the law in the books. Its enforcement of many of them is in the hands of the police department. And one of the main things a police officer has is he enforces the law as discretion on whether to enforce it and look at these things situation by situation. Some are black and white, but to your question, I'm sure that an officer could exercise his or her discretion. But certainly a trailer that's left there that just dropped a boat in is not disabled. A disabled trailer would be a trailer that is inoperable. So I don't want to give you any assurances that it's not going to be, because ultimately I'd have to get inside the head of the police officer who's tasked with investigating that.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, and this goes to the heart of this, is that it's at discretion of the law enforcement officer. And this is one of the reasons why there's been so much resistance on the police department part with regard to a noise ordinance, which many municipalities in the state of Connecticut have, and we very conspicuously do not. And the reason it's constantly brought up by the traffic officer and by Chief Mello has been the impractical application and monitoring of such a thing, having policemen walking around with decibel meters in order to ascertain whether or not they're in violation. If I read this ordinance, the amended ordinance as it exists now, if you park any commercial vehicle or anything that will now fall under that criteria that has been amended in Alderman Grant's language, you can't park a camper, trailer, or any vehicle on City Street, because technically if the officer decided I pulled my boat trailer up, he could give me a ticket right then and there for parking on the city street. There's no duration or time limit to it. I think it's fair to say most policemen are not going to wait for you to pull your commercial vehicle and give you a ticket just for being there. On the other hand, it is a legal matter, and inevitably it's going to come down to some minute point of law with regard to this ordinance. I don't know if anybody else on the board feels this way, but I don't think there's any mechanism here that protect anybody by the letter of the law from being ticketed for having anything that falls under this criteria and being subject to fines for parking a commercial vehicle, a trailer, or some other some vehicle that would be considered in excess of the size limit or weight limit from being ticketed just for being there. That's fair to say.
Mr. Chair, through you, yes. I agree with you.
You know, like,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Like you referred to the gentleman that spoke earlier, Alderman Smith, some of our residents have boats and jet skis and the like, and they're parked in front of their house. And I think what needs to be done, first of all, if they do have room, some of those houses, as mentioned, do not have off-street parking. So no matter how you look at it, they're never going to be able to park that legally. They'll be getting a ticket no matter when they park it. But I think, right, you mentioned it a little bit, that the duration of time should be implemented into that amendment, because someone coming here just to visit their friends, they come down with a watercraft, they should be able to park it until they put it in the water. You can't be ticketing people visiting with their boats or jet skis just if they're going to be there a couple of nights or maybe a week. I think what a lot of people complain about is people that are like the snowbirds, I'll use for example, they'll leave their boat out on East Broadway, for instance, and go for their whole winter. You know, that's completely unacceptable. But that's a tricky, it's a tricky ordinance and also amendment to have the police department use their own discretion as to when they see a trailer on the street and not knowing, unless they chalk it, how long it's been there. You know, I don't know how you want to handle that. Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that most of the time, if you have a wet jet or a trailerable boat, you're going to go down to the one of the Housatonic or the Milford boat ramp, put your boat or wet jet in, and your trailer is going to be parked at that facility until you're done, and then you're going to take the wet jet or boat back out, and then you're going to bring it home. So, you know, I don't think there's gonna be too many people that might get themselves in trouble towing around a empty trailer. I mean, if they're gonna get the trailer repaired but for the most part, it'll be down where they put the boat or put their vehicle in. The part that kind of worries me a little bit is that we do want to be user-friendly. And I look at it like, if you have your boat hooked up to your car, or you have your trailer with your wet jet hooked up, to me, it seems like, you know, you're using your vehicle now in tandem with, you know, the trailer, and maybe we should give a little more leeway for people that are doing that, because maybe they're going to use it for 1 or 2 days. They come in and they park it. They park their car and their trailer with the boat on it, or the wet jet on it, and then they go use it. If they come back, well, that trailer is going to have to find a home, because it's going to be a little bit more difficult for us to determine whether or not they're just leaving the trailer there hooked up to the car and they're driving around with it like that. But you know, whether they're from out of town, or, you know, whether they got one of these vehicles in their yard and they have family or, you know, out of towners coming and they would like to tow that vehicle home and for several days, you know, leave it out. I'm talking a wet jet or a boat that is connected to the vehicle. I tend to be a little bit more in favor of allowing that, but you know, we're basically saying that you're not going to see a city street with a boat or a wet jet on it from here on in, and I think that's going to handcuff a lot of people that want to use it, and maybe for a few days, and not have to come back and always back the boat into their put the vehicles away. So it gives them a little more time, but you know, just understanding it, if the the trailer's got to have a boat or a wet jet on it, and it's got to be tied up to the car. I don't think that's going to be a big problem, but I certainly would like to hear from the rest of you.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I think we're losing the sight of this ordinance. It's for safety. It's line of sight. It's narrowing the road down. So if you're driving your car down, sometimes you go down Broadway or East Broadway, and cars and trailers are parked. You're going very, very slowly because you don't know when somebody's going to come out between the cars or the trailers. I think we can't lose sight. We don't want to punish anybody, but the fact is, it's common sense, even to the person who's driving that vehicle, parking that vehicle, that it's for pedestrian safety. And the fact is, it narrows the road down. Maybe the discretion of the officer giving a ticket would be on a street that would have tremendous space, that when you park that vehicle or that trailer, you're not really narrowing the road down. And I don't know where that might be, but you know, I would imagine that would be the only piece of discretion that somebody needs to give to give that ticket. But let's not lose sight. It's for safety and for pedestrian safety. And you know, when you drive down some of these streets, you know you have to go extremely carefully and really observing as to who's going to dart out between these trailers, the cars, and whatever. So I think we, you know, in making your vote for this ordinance or against this ordinance, you need to think about pedestrian safety. That comes first. Thank you. And kids on the roads, and especially down the beaches. Thank you.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One more time, if I may, thank you. I was prepared to offer an amendment with a duration of 24 hours on this, but I think Alderman Vitale has convinced me that this is indeed an issue of safety. But I will point out that the Traffic Division has designated certain parking areas where you can only park on one side of the street for that very reason, that you have emergency vehicle access and that you do not have too much congestion. Obviously, what's not addressed here is, as Alderman Grant knows, some of these large commercial vehicles that people decide they're going to just reside on their street no matter how wide it is. I live down in the 3rd District, and on parts of East Broadway, it's not very broad. You have to pull over the side, and there could be pedestrians coming out. And large trucks are not prohibited from parking there as it currently stands. However, you're right. If somebody's coming up to go to the Walnut Beach Creamery, they cross the street, they're coming out from those larger vehicles, and this line of sight are obscured. So, as I said, I was going to propose an amendment for 24 hours, but I think the way it's written now, with the understanding that the primary focus of this should be safety and full access to all members of the community to use the parking facilities, I won't propose that, and I am in agreement with the ordinance as fully amended now. After Alderman Vitale's presentation.
I have to say something now. You're being partial now. You're talking about neighbors where you live, Alderman Smith. The roads are very narrow, very small. Where I live, I park my boat very oftentimes so that my cars come in and out in the street. And there's plenty of room. There's no safety issue at all. Well, again, I mean, if you're going to make this a safety issue, it's in other words, if you live on Wheelers Farms Road, it's not a safety issue because kids aren't going to be darting in and out. But if you live down by the beach, that certainly might be a safety issue because boats do take up, sometimes boats take up more room than cars.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chair. I think safety is everywhere. I mean, we just can't discriminate as to where safety is going to be. There are kids everywhere, whether it's on a well-widened road, somebody can dart out. I think it's an overall, I think we have to think about the big picture. We can't think about East Broadway or you know, Burnt Plains or whatever, you know. And if you do live on Burnt Plains, and if you do live on one of those streets, you probably have off-street parking, probably have a driveway. So you're not going to be that concerned with that particular issue. But I think we need to think about the safety issue in narrowing the roads down. Because if you're on a main thoroughfare and if you don't have a driveway and you live in those areas, that's very unusual. Even on Edgefield, you know, going down Edgefield, everybody has off-street parking up in that area. And I shouldn't say everybody, but most of the homes have some driveway. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but the fact is we got to think about safety and people around us. Thank you.
Once again, you take a road like East Broadway, the cars are bumper to bumper from the beginning of East Broadway to the end. Whether there are cars, pickup trucks, or boats, they're still taking up one flow of one side of the street. So there's still the same amount of danger connected to a line of cars or a line of boats or a line of anything along roads such as East Broadway. So I don't see the difference between parking a jet ski trailer and parking a big 3/4-ton van that's allowed. It's still, you have to watch out for anyone going in and out of in between the cars. Again, you're being partial to boat owners or jet ski owners or small trailer owners versus cars or big vans. It's the same thing.
Just to follow up, you know, some trailers are wider than others, some cars are wider than others, some trailers are wider than others, and you get this odd shape or pattern in that road, and you know, you might think something is clear, but again, I don't call it discrimination, I call it safety, and I think it's safety for everyone, so that's what we have to think about. Thank you.
Any more discussion on just Alderman Vecchiarelli?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've got a question. the plates that go on, let's say, pickup trucks and vans, use those two because they are used for commercial purposes and they're used for private purposes. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. Can you get like regular passenger plates for a pickup truck?
Yes.
Or a van?
Yes.
And then also, so yes, you can. But now, can you get combination plates for a pickup truck or a van?
Yes.
Now, what is a combination plate? What is that?
Have a business, and you're using it for your personal use as well. You get combination markers, so that you could actually use it for a write-off on your business because you're using it for your business and then you're also using it for your personal use. Or commercial, you're only using it for your business.
All right, but let's say, for example, I buy a new van or a new pickup truck, and I want to use it for my own personal pleasure. And if I just get, if I get combination plates, no. If I get just like passenger plates, would I be able to take that on the Merritt Parkway?
As long as it's not over 7,500 GVW. There's a limit. There's a limit on the Parkway. You can bring anything on there that's less than 7,500 GVW. That's what they're concerned with. They don't care whether it's a van, a pickup truck, or whatever.
Okay. So combination plates, would I be able to go on the Parkway?
Under 7,500 pounds, yes.
Okay. Well, what worries me about this ordinance is that we're going to be taking vans and we're going to be taking pickup trucks, and we're going to be, with this ordinance, with the 10,000 pounds, we are going to be making them liable. Now, you might say, well, how's a cop going to know whether your pickup truck is 10,000 or 15,000? Well, that's true. But if you park your van, your pickup truck, like I think you said yours was over the 10,000, if you park that out in the street, and God forbid something happens and an accident is caused by, you just happen to park your vehicle out there and it's over 10,000 pounds, by this ordinance, you are then going to be liable. And so now what was not your fault, and you were, you bought your truck, it was over the 10,000 pounds, maybe you weren't even aware of this. The smart lawyer goes and says, yep, you were illegally parked, you should have never been on the street, this is your problem, you caused the accident. So, that liability, you might not get a ticket by the police because he's not going to be able to split these hairs, but we are putting people in harm's way if they're over that 10,000 pounds. And we're selling vehicles over that 10,000 pounds right out of the showrooms. These are pickup trucks. And I would imagine there may be some vans out there too. So, I mean, I really think that we should maybe look at this a little bit better. I mean, I can't support this the way it is because of the liabilities I think that we're going to be putting on people here. So changing it from the 15,000 to the 10,000, I think it's going to put people in harm's way for liability.
I'd like to,
Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Part of it, actually, I would like the city attorney to speak on this a little bit more, was actually adding a line that are excluding station wagons, compact type bus vehicles, and pickup trucks used for private transportation. So it would exclude pickup trucks that are over 10,000 pounds. And if the city attorney could speak on that a little more, that'd be helpful.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, through you, to Alderman Grant, the topic of this ordinance came to me from Alderman Anderson, I think in June, and I sent him some research at the end of June with an analysis of, I think, 14 or 15 other communities in Connecticut that had prohibitions in one way or the other on commercial vehicles. How you define commercial vehicle, there's many ways to skin a cat in terms of the weight limits and things. So I know there was some discussion just before the meeting in terms of concerns on how we got to the weight limit in the original form. The original form was 10,000. I sent to the police department. They were concerned about pickup trucks, specifically the F-250 and the F-350. The F-250 is right at that 10,000 pound threshold, and the F-350 exceeds that. So that's where the police department came, 15,000. Alderman Grant then did a lot of research, you know, and discovered these U-Haul trucks, which, you know, could be manipulated. Now, my comment to you is, at 10,000, the Danbury one seemed like a viable solution to the concerns because it excluded pickup trucks, station wagons, and things of that sort. But there's also ways where you can do it where you can define it by weight or by length and height. I take no pride in authorship. As a legislative body of the city, you can certainly look at that. I think that the exclusion and the amendment proposed by Alderman Grant is a fine solution to the problem. In terms of the liabilities, I don't necessarily see the liabilities, Alderman Beccarelli. I appreciate your opinion. I think that if there is a truck that is illegally parked or causes an obstructed view, with or without the ordinance, someone could make a claim that the driver's view is obstructed, but I don't think an ordinance is going to add liability any greater than somebody parking a large vehicle in excess of 10,000 or 15,000 pounds and obstructs another driver's view. I don't see that, but I'm not sure I added anything to what you said, Alderman Grant, other than that there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. I'm happy to share with you the research that I found for other communities because there's multiple ways that you can define commercial vehicles. I think that the current enumeration of 10,000 pounds with the exclusion to the pickup trucks for private transportation is a fine alternative or compromise, but I'll leave that to you folks.
You made a very good point that the size and height and shape of the vehicle has just as much complaints from neighbors than the weight. You know, if you, like the one down in Woodmont, I'll bring that up again, that's a pretty big size box truck, but it's not over 10,000 pounds, I'll tell you right now. It's just a big shell, but it's big and it's intrusive, and that's why people are complaining about that particular vehicle, but it's not overweight.
I know in New Britain, they prohibit 10,000 pounds or a vehicle that's greater than 30 feet or 8 feet in height. But I know that Alderman Grant raised a very good point. I think there's a U-Haul truck that's less than 30 feet. But, you know, so it wouldn't fall, it wouldn't address it. So again, there's a lot of different ways you can skin a cat. I'm not sure you're gonna capture every possible concern. I think in legislating this and creating this, you want to make sure you don't infringe upon those people driving their private vehicles, you know, we're a working class community, you don't want to impact that, but you also want to, you know, create the biggest value for the safety issues that are raised.
Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I would, just to reinforce the city attorney's opinion, I would agree. This was not really brought back to us due to the weight factor. It was more of the size factor, like you explained. These under CDL box trucks, these rental trucks, or these trucks that, you know, obviously anybody can drive with a regular passenger license, have become more and more noticeable in our neighborhoods for whatever reasons. People, you know, seem to drive these trucks, or they have jobs and they take the trucks home. And I think that's really what brought this to light again. I think You know, as far as the gentleman that came here tonight that spoke about the tourism and having people come down with jet skis and water sports, to that point, I mean, we have, you know, the boat ramps, and I see people drop their jet skis into the water or their small watercraft boats, and they park their vehicles there. They leave them there for the duration of the time that they're out on the water. And once they come back at the end of the day, they can leave their trailer there, disconnect it, and take their pickup truck and drive downtown and park and go get some lunch. I mean, they're, you know, entitled to do that. So I just wanted to, you know, make that point as well. But I'm in favor of it as it's been amended. Thank you.
Alderman Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, as I listen to the arguments of my fellow board members and the thoughts that they've all shared, the more that I look at what we are amending and how it impacts what is already existing in the ordinance, I think requires further study. Going to the point that you made, Chairman Vitro, about yourself and Alderman Tranquilli having work truck vehicles, as presently phrased and what would be unamended by what is on the table and what was proposed is Section B, which says this section shall not apply to a commercial vehicle that is parked on a city or state highway solely for the purpose of loading or unloading during the ordinary course of business. That doesn't take into account commercial vehicle as referenced there, a work truck, a service truck, someone that, you know, a plumber with a truck that would fall under the new definition of commercial vehicle, who is not going to be parked in a residence or business's driveway, but perhaps out on the street. So they would be in violation of this ordinance, and I think it creates a great many problems for its enforcement, and it puts too much discretion, too much on the officer that has to respond to such a call. And to the extent that that can circle back to the chairman's report, if it is possible to postpone further discussion of this ordinance, the proposed amendments, I would suggest that we do so, and perhaps the ordinance committee, or it could be referred back to the ordinance committee for some tweaking or tightening up, and then present it again.
I personally think that's a great idea. I think this ordinance needs a little bit more detail other than what we've already heard, and there is a lot of different discussion as to what we should add or what we should subtract. So maybe we should think about bringing this up at another time once we've had it more detailed. Alderman Vitale.
Yes, there seems to be a lot of discussion, a little more refinement. I'd like to make a motion to postpone and have it rewritten so that a lot of refinement can go into the with this discussion we had tonight. So I make a motion to postpone.
I would second the motion.
A motion has been made and seconded to postpone this particular ordinance at a later date. Any discussion on the motion? Are you postponing it? That's right. I'm sorry. Postpone it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A roll call vote. Madam Secretary, please.
Alderman Beatty? Alderman Fortunati? Alderman Gaynor? Yes. Alderman Gurman? Alderman Giannatasio?
Yes.
Alderman Golden? No. Alderman Grant?
No.
Alderman Hardiman? No. Alderman Smith? No. Alderman Sutton?
Yes.
Alderman Tranquilli?
Yes.
Alderman Vecchiarelli?
Yes.
Alderman Vitro?
Yes.
Alderman Vitale?
6 no, 8 yes. This will be postponed to a future date. Alderman Smith, you all set? You read all the ordinances?
We voted on the amended motion, so I think I'm all done. Yes, I'm all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more committee reports at this time? Seeing none, open under agenda item number 13, special committees. Any reports of any special committees? Alderman Hardeman.
I want to let you know that Alderman Vitale and myself have been touring all schools, watching all the improvements to the schools, and we found everything has been good. Now you come up to West Shore Middle School, we had our last meeting there, and they claimed that the classrooms will be ready by the 20th to get ready for the school opening, which is the 23rd. When I walked through, I don't know how he felt, but when I walked through, it did not look like it was going to be ready on the 20th. So I went in there today, and I saw double crews working. So we'll see what happens from there. So that's what I got going on. Alderman Vitale, do you have anything?
It's just going to take a miracle as far as I'm concerned. Whether that building's going to be prepared, it might be enough to get the kids in, but they're going to be working way after the kids come back to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hardeman and Alderman Vitale. Next item on the agenda is the executive session. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss 14A, postponed from July 2nd, 2018 meeting, consideration of settlement of Milford Yacht Club versus City of Milford regarding 131 Trumbull Avenue. Item 14B, consideration of settlement of Dan Coffee Incorporated versus City of Milford regarding 275 Boston Post Road. And item number 14C, consideration of settlement of WP Properties LLC versus City of Milford regarding 185 Plains Road. Joining us in executive session for item 14 will be the Mayor, Ben Blake, and City Attorney John Bertram, and Assessor Dan Thomas. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Can I have a second? Motion is made and second to go to executive session. All in favor? Opposed? We're in executive session.
Thank you. It's dark outside, so I wouldn't have even known until
Welcome back. We're out of executive session. Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize settlement in the matter of the Milford Yacht Club versus City of Milford in regards to 131 Trumbull Ave in accordance with the recommendations of the city attorney and city assessor as discussed in executive session.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed?
No.
Roll call vote, Madam Secretary.
Alderman Beatty? Yes. Alderman Fortunati? Alderman Gaynor? Alderman Gurman? Alderman Gennatasio? Yes. Alderman Golden? Yes. Alderman Grant? Yes. Alderman Hardiman? Yes. Alderman Smith? Yes. Alderman Sutton? Yes. Alderman Tranquilli? Yes. Alderman Vecchiarelli? No. Alderman Vitro?
Yes.
Alderman Vitale? Yes. 13-1, Mr.
13-1, the motion passes. Alderman Vecchiarelli, 14B.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize settlement in the matter of Dancoff, Inc. versus City of Milford regards to 275 Boston Post Road in accordance with the recommendations of the city attorney and city assessor as discussed in executive session.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, 14C.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize settlement in the matter of WP Properties, LLC versus City of Milford regards to 185 Plains Road in accordance with the recommendations of the city attorney and city assessor as discussed in executive session.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.